Mastering life is not about control, it's about understanding. The most powerful individuals, the ones who shape their own destinies, are not those who try to control every outcome, but those who learn to control themselves. The greatest challenge you will ever face is not the world around you, it is the battle within. This is not a path of shortcuts. It is not about waiting for motivation to strike or hoping for circumstances to align perfectly. It is about training your mind, building the right habits, developing unshakable self-discipline, and embracing the lifelong process of growth. Because the truth is, there is no final version of you. There is only progress, refinement, the continuous pursuit of becoming. The greatest thinkers, from the Stoics to modern psychologists, have always understood this. Your mind is either your greatest asset or your greatest limitation. Every decision, every habit, every action is shaping you into the person you're becoming. The question is, are you becoming someone you admire or someone who is simply drifting? Mastering your life is not about perfection, it's about alignment. Aligning your actions with your values, aligning your thoughts with your highest potential, aligning your time with what truly matters. Because the truth is, success, fulfillment, and impact are not destinations. They are byproducts of the choices you make every single day. In this episode, we will explore what it takes to master yourself, your mindset, your habits, your discipline, your learning, your purpose. Because the ultimate freedom is not found in external achievements, but in becoming the person who is capable of achieving anything. Now, let's begin. Mastering your mindset. Everything you do, every decision you make, and every goal you pursue starts in one place, your mindset. Your mind is either your greatest asset or your greatest limitation. If you do not master your thoughts, they will master you. The way you interpret challenges, failures, and opportunities will shape your reality far more than external circumstances ever could. Consider Viktor Frankl, a man who endured the horrors of Nazi concentration camps and yet emerged with one of the most powerful insights in human history. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Even in the face of unimaginable suffering, he realized that the mind was the final frontier of control. If he could control his thoughts, he could control his experience of reality. And in doing so, he not only survived, he helped millions discover the power of inner resilience. This lesson applies to all of us. Your mindset is not just about positive thinking, it is about training yourself to see opportunity where others see obstacles. It is about shifting your focus from what you lack to what you can build, from what is out of your control to what you can influence. The greatest achievers in history did not wait for perfect conditions. They created them through mental discipline and relentless determination. Modern neuroscience supports this. Studies on neuroplasticity reveal that our brains are constantly rewiring themselves based on our dominant thoughts. If you tell yourself that you are not capable, not smart enough, not ready, you are reinforcing neural pathways that make those beliefs stronger. But if you train yourself to think in terms of growth, resilience, and problem-solving, your brain adapts, and those patterns become your default way of seeing the world. So how do you master your mindset? First, become aware of your inner dialogue. Pay attention to the words you tell yourself daily. Are they empowering, or are they keeping you stuck? Second, practice reframing challenges. Instead of seeing setbacks as failures, train yourself to view them as lessons. Third, expose yourself to perspectives that expand your thinking. Read, learn, engage with new ideas, and question your own assumptions. Throughout history, the greatest minds, from Marcus Aurelius to Nelson Mandela, from Viktor Frankl to modern neuroscientists, have taught the same truth. The way you think shapes the way you live. If you believe you are limited, you will be. If you believe you are capable of growth, your actions will follow. Your mindset is not fixed. It is a muscle. Strengthen it, and everything else in your life will follow. The power of habits. Success is rarely about talent, intelligence, or even luck. It is about what you do consistently. The small, repeated actions that seem insignificant in the moment are the very things that determine where you end up. Your habits are the invisible architecture of your life. They shape your mindset, your discipline, and ultimately, your destiny. Take Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest minds in history. Many assume his genius was a product of raw talent, but in reality, it was his daily habits that set him apart. He carried a notebook everywhere, constantly sketching, questioning, and analyzing the world around him. He didn't rely on sudden bursts of inspiration. He created an environment where creativity became inevitable. His discipline in daily learning compounded over time, making him not just a painter, but a scientist, engineer, and philosopher. Most people make the mistake of thinking that greatness comes from single, life-changing moments. But the truth is, it comes from the small things you do every single day. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. If your habits are weak, no amount of motivation will save you. If your habits are strong, success becomes inevitable. Science confirms this. Studies on habit formation show that repeated behaviors literally rewire the brain, making them automatic over time. This means that your daily actions are not just things you do, they are shaping who you become. Every time you procrastinate, you reinforce avoidance. Every time you take action, you reinforce discipline. This is why building the right habits is not about motivation, it's about automation. So how do you build habits that lead to success? First, start small. The biggest mistake people make is trying to change everything at once. Instead, focus on one small habit. Reading 10 minutes a day, exercising for 5 minutes, waking up at a set time. Second, remove friction. Make good habits easy to start and bad habits harder to continue. Want to read more? Place a book where you can see it. Want to stop wasting time on your phone? Remove distractions before they take control. Third, stay consistent. It's not about intensity, it's about showing up every day, no matter how small the effort. Look at Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest basketball players in history. His success was not just about natural talent, it was his relentless commitment to his habits. He practiced at 4 a.m. every day, not because he had to, but because he knew that greatness is built in the hours no one sees. The same is true for anyone who has ever achieved something extraordinary. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, puts it simply, every action you take is a vote for the person you want to become. If you want to master your life, master your habits. Because in the end, your success is not determined by what you do occasionally, but by what you do consistently. Building self-discipline. Most people wait for motivation to take action, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. The people who achieve greatness, the ones who push past limitations, do not rely on fleeting emotions. They rely on self-discipline. They do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. Take Jocko Willink, a former Navy SEAL and leadership expert. His entire philosophy can be summed up in one phrase: discipline equals freedom. While most people see discipline as a restriction, as something that limits freedom, the truth is the opposite. Without discipline, you are controlled by your impulses. You eat what you crave. You waste time on distractions. You put off difficult tasks because they feel uncomfortable. But with discipline, you control your actions, your habits, and ultimately, your future. Self-discipline is what separates those who succeed from those who merely dream. It is what gets you up early when you'd rather sleep. It is what keeps you working when everyone else has stopped. It is what allows you to push through failure, doubt, and resistance, because you have trained yourself not to quit. Science backs this up. Research in psychology has shown that self-discipline is a stronger predictor of success than intelligence or talent. A study from Stanford University's famous marshmallow experiment found that children who had the ability to delay gratification, who could resist taking one marshmallow now for the promise of two later, grew up to be more successful, healthier, and more financially stable than those who gave in to immediate temptation. So how do you build self-discipline? First, remove the need for motivation. Stop waiting to feel like doing something. Decide that your actions are non-negotiable, whether it's working out, writing, or studying. Make it part of your identity. Second, create systems that make discipline automatic. Set clear routines, minimize distractions, and make success the default option. Third, embrace discomfort. Growth only happens outside of your comfort zone. If something feels hard, train yourself to lean into it instead of avoiding it. Consider David Goggins, a man who went from an overweight, depressed exterminator to one of the toughest endurance athletes in the world. He didn't do it through motivation. He did it through relentless discipline. He trained himself to push beyond pain, beyond exhaustion, beyond self-doubt. He became the master of his mind, and in doing so, he became the master of his life. The Stoics believed that the greatest freedom comes from self-control. Modern science proves that discipline leads to long-term success. The greatest athletes, thinkers, and leaders all share one trait. They do what must be done, no matter how they feel. Their lesson is clear. Do not wait for the right mood. Do not wait for motivation. Train yourself to take action every single day, because in the end, the difference between those who achieve and those who don't is simple: discipline. Lifelong learning. The most successful, resilient, and adaptable individuals in history share one defining trait: they never stop learning. They do not see education as something that ends with school or formal training. Instead, they view it as a lifelong commitment, a process of continuous refinement, exploration, and intellectual expansion. To master your life, you must first master the art of learning. Consider Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest minds to ever live. He was not just a painter. He was an engineer, an anatomist, a mathematician, and an inventor. He kept notebooks filled with endless questions. Why is the sky blue? How do birds fly? What makes the human body function the way it does? His brilliance was not a product of raw talent alone, but of an insatiable curiosity and an unrelenting commitment to knowledge. He understood that learning is not something you do once, it is something you live. Modern research supports this. Studies in neuroscience reveal that the brain remains highly plastic throughout life, meaning that it can continue to grow, adapt, and form new neural connections as long as it is actively engaged in learning. In other words, intelligence is not fixed. The more you expose yourself to new ideas, new challenges, and new skills, the more your brain expands and strengthens. But most people stop learning the moment they no longer have to. They graduate, they get comfortable, and they stop seeking knowledge. They assume that learning is for students, for academics, for those with time to spare. And that is the reason most people stop growing, because they stop feeding their minds. The most successful figures in history never made this mistake. Warren Buffett, one of the world's most accomplished investors, spends hours reading every day. Bill Gates takes think weeks to immerse himself in books. Socrates, one of the greatest philosophers, declared that true wisdom comes from knowing that you know nothing. These individuals understood that knowledge is the foundation of all success. So how do you make lifelong learning a part of your life? First, embrace curiosity. Never accept that you know enough. Always question, always explore. Second, read daily. Books condense decades of wisdom into pages. The more you read, the more perspectives you gain. Third, challenge yourself with new skills. Whether it's learning a language, mastering a new craft, or exploring a different field, growth happens at the edges of your comfort zone. The world belongs to those who continue learning. The Stoics believed that wisdom was the highest virtue. The greatest thinkers in history proved that knowledge is power. Their lesson is clear. Never allow yourself to stagnate. Never believe that you have arrived. The moment you stop learning, you stop growing. But if you remain a student of life, your potential is limitless. Taking action and overcoming procrastination. The greatest ideas, the most ambitious plans, and even the deepest knowledge mean nothing without action. Success is never about what you intend to do, it is about what you actually do. And yet, one of the most common obstacles people face is procrastination, the silent killer of progress. Why do people procrastinate? It's not because they are lazy, it's because their mind perceives action as a threat. The brain is wired to seek comfort and avoid discomfort. When faced with a challenge, uncertainty, or effort, the mind tries to protect itself by delaying action. But in doing so, it creates more stress, more regret, and more frustration. Consider Theodore Roosevelt, a man known for his relentless energy and action-oriented approach to life. From a sickly child to a war hero, president and explorer, his philosophy was simple. Do what you can, with what you have, where you are. He never waited for the perfect moment. He took action despite the odds. Because waiting for perfect conditions is the greatest excuse for inaction. Science supports this. Research in psychology has found that action itself reduces procrastination. The Zeigarnik effect states that once you start a task, your brain is more likely to push you to complete it. In other words, the hardest part is simply starting. So how do you stop procrastinating and take action? First, reduce the resistance. If a task feels overwhelming, break it down into the smallest possible step. Instead of saying, "I need to write a book," say, "I need to write one sentence." Instead of, "I need to get in shape," say, "I need to do one push-up." Second, create momentum. Small wins lead to bigger wins. Once you start, the resistance fades. Third, adopt an identity of action. Instead of thinking, "I'm someone who struggles with procrastination," start telling yourself, "I am someone who takes action." Look at Richard Branson, the entrepreneur behind Virgin Group. His entire career was built on rapid execution. He didn't wait for the perfect business plan. He took the first step, made adjustments, and kept moving forward. That's what separates achievers from dreamers, the willingness to act before feeling ready. The Stoics believed that hesitation is the enemy of progress. The most successful people in history, scientists, leaders, innovators, did not wait for permission, motivation, or certainty. They acted. Their lesson is clear. Stop overthinking, stop waiting, and just begin. Because once you start, you gain power over procrastination, and when you gain power over procrastination, you gain power over your life. Creating balance in life. Success means little if it comes at the cost of your well-being, relationships, or peace of mind. True mastery of life is not about relentless achievement. It is about balance. The ability to navigate ambition and rest, discipline and spontaneity, productivity and stillness is what separates those who burn out from those who build a life that is both fulfilling and sustainable. Many great minds have struggled with this. Nikola Tesla, one of the most brilliant inventors in history, became so consumed by his work that he neglected his health and relationships. Steve Jobs, while revolutionizing technology, later reflected on how he had sacrificed too much of his personal life in the process. On the other hand, Leonardo da Vinci understood the importance of balance. His curiosity extended beyond work, into nature, movement, and social connection. He saw the world as a symphony of interconnected ideas, not just a series of tasks to complete. Modern science supports this wisdom. Studies on cognitive performance show that working endlessly does not lead to greater productivity. Strategic breaks, movement, and mindfulness significantly enhance creativity and problem-solving. The brain thrives on balance. Overworking leads to stress, exhaustion, and ultimately diminished results. Sustained success comes from aligning your efforts with the rhythms of both your mind and body. So, how do you create balance in a world that constantly demands more? First, define your non-negotiables. What are the things that truly matter to you outside of work? Your health, relationships, passions? Protect them as fiercely as your ambitions. Second, schedule time for recovery. Just as muscles grow during rest, the mind sharpens when given space to breathe. Third, set boundaries. Learn to say no to obligations that drain you and yes to what replenishes your energy. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. Despite ruling an empire, he dedicated time to reflection, philosophy, and personal relationships. He understood that true leadership requires inner stability, and that stability comes from knowing when to push forward and when to step back. Balance is not about doing everything in equal parts. It is about aligning your life with what truly matters. The great minds of history, from ancient Stoics to modern innovators, understood that success without balance leads to collapse. Their lesson is clear: prioritize wisely, rest intentionally, and live fully, not just in one aspect, but in all aspects of life. The power of reflection and self-awareness. The greatest obstacle to growth is not a lack of opportunity, resources, or talent. It is a lack of self-awareness. Without taking time to reflect on your actions, thoughts, and choices, you risk moving through life on autopilot, repeating the same mistakes and wondering why you're not progressing. Mastering your life requires mastering yourself, and that begins with reflection. Throughout history, the most successful individuals have prioritized deep introspection. Socrates, the father of Western philosophy, famously declared, "The unexamined life is not worth living." He understood that without self-reflection, people become prisoners of their own unconscious habits, beliefs, and biases. Leonardo da Vinci kept detailed journals, constantly questioning his own ideas and refining his thinking. Even modern leaders, from Warren Buffett to Ray Dalio, emphasize the importance of structured reflection in decision-making and personal growth. Neuroscience confirms this wisdom. Studies on metacognition, the ability to think about one's own thinking, show that self-reflective individuals make better decisions, experience greater emotional stability, and adapt more effectively to challenges. In contrast, those who avoid introspection often repeat negative patterns, reacting impulsively rather than responding with wisdom. So how can you cultivate self-awareness? First, build a habit of daily reflection. Take time to ask yourself meaningful questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What patterns am I noticing in my actions? Writing your thoughts down magnifies this process, turning fleeting insights into tangible lessons. Second, seek feedback. We all have blind spots, and the perspective of others can help us see what we might otherwise miss. Third, embrace discomfort. True self-awareness requires honesty. It's easy to acknowledge strengths, but growth comes from recognizing and addressing weaknesses. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who spent his evenings writing in his journal, evaluating his thoughts and behaviors. His reflections, later compiled into meditations, are not grand philosophical statements. They are reminders to himself, lessons learned, corrections made. He understood that mastery of life is not about external conquest, but about refining one's own mind. If you do not take time to reflect, you risk living reactively rather than intentionally. The greatest minds in history understood that awareness is power. Their lesson is clear. Pause, reflect, and refine, because the person you are becoming depends on how well you understand yourself today. Embracing change and letting go of fear. Change is the only certainty in life, yet for many it is also the greatest source of fear. We resist change because it threatens the familiar, forcing us to step into the unknown. But the people who master their lives are not those who avoid change. They are the ones who embrace it, adapt, and grow stronger because of it. History is filled with those who thrived, not because they were the most skilled, but because they were the most adaptable. Charles Darwin, the father of evolutionary theory, observed that survival is not about strength or intelligence, but about the ability to adapt. Bruce Lee, one of the greatest martial artists in history, echoed this wisdom when he said, "Be water, my friend." Water does not resist change. It flows, it reshapes, it adjusts, and in doing so, it overcomes even the hardest obstacles. Science supports this idea. Psychological studies on neuroplasticity confirm that the brain is designed for adaptation. The more we expose ourselves to change, the more flexible and resilient we become. But when we resist it, when we fear the unknown, we limit our own potential. Fear of change is not a reflection of reality. It is a mental construct, a protective mechanism that keeps us trapped in comfort zones. So how do you embrace change instead of resisting it? First, reframe uncertainty as opportunity. Instead of seeing change as a disruption, train yourself to see it as a doorway to something new. Second, take action despite fear. Fear does not disappear before you act. It disappears because you act. The more you expose yourself to the unfamiliar, the more confident you become in navigating the unknown. Third, develop a habit of experimentation. Try new things regularly. Challenge your routines. Seek discomfort in small ways. This strengthens your adaptability, making larger changes easier to handle. Consider Nelson Mandela, who went from prisoner to president. Instead of resisting the massive shifts in his life, he embraced them, using his time in prison to grow, learn, and refine his vision. He understood that real power is not in controlling circumstances, but in adapting to them with purpose. The Stoics believed that fear of change is wasted energy. Heraclitus, the ancient Greek philosopher, famously said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man." Life is always moving. Resisting it only leads to suffering. The lesson is clear. Let go of fear, embrace uncertainty, and flow with the changes of life. Because the more adaptable you are, the stronger you become. Overcoming fear and taking bold action. Fear is the silent force that keeps people from pursuing their dreams, speaking their truth, or stepping into their full potential. It whispers doubts, magnifies risks, and convinces you to stay where it feels safe. But the truth is, every person who has ever achieved something remarkable has faced fear and acted anyway. Consider Theodore Roosevelt, who lived by the motto, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." He understood that fear is not eliminated by waiting, it is eliminated by moving forward. As a sickly child, he could have accepted weakness, but instead he pushed through his limitations, building both his mind and body into one of the most resilient leaders in history. He did not let fear dictate his actions. He dictated his actions despite fear. Fear thrives in inaction. The more you hesitate, the more power fear has over you. But the moment you take a step forward, fear begins to shrink. Psychological studies confirm this. Exposure therapy, a technique used to overcome phobias, shows that confronting fear directly, rather than avoiding it, weakens its hold over time. So how do you take bold action in the face of fear? First, shift your perspective. Fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal that growth is ahead. Second, take immediate action. Do not wait until you feel ready, because you never truly will. Readiness comes through doing. Third, build momentum through small acts of courage. If you fear public speaking, start by speaking in small groups. If you fear failure, start with low-risk challenges. Courage is built like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Look at Amelia Earhart, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. The odds were against her. Fear was inevitable. But she did not let uncertainty hold her back. She acted. She stepped into risk. She embraced the unknown. That is what separates those who watch from the sidelines from those who shape history. The Stoics believed that fear is an illusion, a projection of the mind onto the future. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of the things we fear never happen, but even when they do, we are stronger than we think. The lesson is clear. Fear will always exist, but it does not have to control you. Step forward, take bold action, and prove to yourself that you are greater than your fears. Living with purpose and fulfillment. A life without purpose is like a ship without direction, adrift, carried by external forces, never reaching a meaningful destination. The people who master their lives are the ones who define their purpose, align their actions with it, and pursue it with intention. Purpose gives life meaning, resilience, and direction. It turns effort into impact and struggle into growth. Consider Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Despite enduring unthinkable suffering, he observed that those who survived were not always the physically strongest, but those who had a deep sense of purpose, something to live for beyond themselves. He believed that man's greatest motivation is not pleasure or power, but meaning. Those who found a purpose, a reason to endure, could withstand even the harshest conditions. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Studies in positive psychology confirm that people with a strong sense of purpose experience greater life satisfaction, lower stress, and increased resilience. When you have a clear purpose, setbacks do not feel like failures. They feel like steps on a greater journey. Discipline becomes easier, motivation becomes sustainable, and even discomfort feels meaningful. So how do you live with purpose and fulfillment? First, ask yourself, what truly matters to me? Your purpose is not something you find, it is something you build through action. Second, align your daily actions with your long-term vision. Purpose is not about occasional breakthroughs, it is about consistent, intentional steps. Third, connect your purpose to something greater than yourself. Whether through contribution, impact, or mastery, the most fulfilling paths are those that extend beyond personal gain. Consider Mahatma Gandhi, who could have lived a comfortable life but chose a path of struggle for a greater cause. His purpose was not about personal success. It was about service, justice, and transformation. He endured challenges that would have broken most people, but because his actions were fueled by purpose, he never wavered. The Stoics also emphasized this. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that his duty was not to personal comfort, but to the greater good. Purpose, to him, was not an abstract concept. It was a daily practice. The lesson is clear. Without purpose, life feels empty. But with purpose, even the hardest challenges become meaningful. Define what matters to you, live with intention, and create a life that is both fulfilling and impactful. Designing a life you love. Most people drift through life, reacting to circumstances rather than shaping their own path. But those who truly master their lives do not leave their future to chance. They design it with intention. Instead of waiting for the perfect opportunity, they create it. Instead of settling for what life gives them, they build the life they want. Consider Benjamin Franklin, a man who deliberately designed his days, habits, and personal philosophy. He kept a structured daily schedule, ensuring that every hour was aligned with his greater goals. He did not wait for success. He crafted it piece by piece through disciplined action and intentional choices. His ability to design his own life turned him from a poor apprentice into one of history's greatest thinkers, inventors, and leaders. Modern science supports this principle. Psychological studies show that people who set clear goals and structure their time experience higher levels of happiness, productivity, and life satisfaction. The brain thrives on direction. Without a plan, we default to distractions, routine, and autopilot living. But with clear intentions, every action moves us closer to the life we envision. So how do you design a life you love? First, define what success means to you. Do not adopt society's definition. Create your own. What does a fulfilling life look like for you? Second, structure your days with purpose. Small, intentional habits build the foundation of your future. Third, eliminate what does not serve you. Say no to distractions, toxic relationships, and obligations that do not align with your vision. Consider Maya Angelou, who built her creative life with precision. She did not wait for inspiration. She structured her environment and daily routines to ensure that her best work would emerge. She understood that success is not a result of luck, but of deliberate effort and planning. The Stoics believed that life should be lived with design, not randomness. Seneca advised, "Life is long if you know how to use it. Most people waste their years on distractions and regrets. The lesson is clear. If you do not design your life, someone else will. Define your vision, take control of your time, and build a life that is truly yours. The power of consistency and perseverance. Greatness is not built in a single moment of inspiration. It is forged through relentless consistency and unwavering perseverance. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not intelligence, talent, or luck. It is the ability to show up every single day, regardless of circumstances. Consider Thomas Edison, who conducted over 10,000 experiments before successfully inventing the light bulb. Most people would have quit long before reaching that breakthrough. But Edison understood that failure was simply a part of progress. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." His unwavering consistency turned him into one of the greatest inventors of all time. Modern research confirms this truth. Psychological studies show that people who focus on consistency rather than perfection are far more likely to achieve long-term success. Why? Because consistency creates habits, and habits shape outcomes. Waiting for motivation is unreliable. Discipline is what keeps progress moving forward. So how do you develop consistency and perseverance? First, commit to small daily actions. Do not focus on massive leaps. Focus on steady, continuous improvement. Second, embrace failure as part of the process. Do not see obstacles as stop signs. See them as necessary steps on the path to mastery. Third, build an identity of resilience. Instead of saying, "I'll try to be consistent," say, "I am someone who follows through, no matter what." Consider Serena Williams, one of the greatest athletes in history. She did not become a champion overnight. She trained relentlessly, even on days when she didn't feel like it. She understood that true excellence is built on the days when motivation is low, but discipline remains strong. The Stoics believed that perseverance is one of life's greatest virtues. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that difficulties are a part of life, and overcoming them is what builds strength. The lesson is clear. Talent may open doors, but consistency and perseverance are what keep them open. Show up, keep going, and trust that every effort, no matter how small, is moving you forward. Creating your legacy and impact. At the end of life, no one is remembered for what they intended to do. They are remembered for what they actually did, the impact they made, the lives they touched, and the legacy they left behind. True mastery of life is not just about personal success. It is about using your time, skills, and influence to leave something greater than yourself. Consider Alexander Hamilton, one of the founding fathers of the United States. He came from nothing, an orphan with no wealth, no power, and no connections. Yet, through sheer determination, strategic thinking, and an obsession with building something greater than himself, he helped shape an entire nation. He knew that legacy is not about personal gain, but about creating something that endures beyond your lifetime. Science confirms this drive. Psychologists refer to generativity, the deep human need to contribute to something meaningful. Studies show that people who focus on legacy, contribution, and impact report higher levels of fulfillment and long-term life satisfaction. Leaving a legacy does not have to mean changing the world. It means making a difference in the way that matters most to you. So, how do you create a meaningful legacy? First, shift your mindset from success to significance. Ask yourself, what impact do I want to have on others? Second, take action beyond yourself. Whether it's through mentoring, creating, teaching, or leading, the greatest fulfillment comes from lifting others up. Third, live with intention. Every decision, every action, every habit is shaping your legacy, consciously or unconsciously. Look at Mother Teresa, who dedicated her life to serving the poor. She did not seek wealth, status, or personal gain. Her focus was on creating a ripple effect of kindness and service that would outlast her own lifetime. The same is true for all great leaders, thinkers, and visionaries. They understood that what they built was never just for themselves. The Stoics believed that true fulfillment comes from serving a purpose beyond oneself. Seneca wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." The lesson is clear. Your legacy is being written every day, through your choices, your actions, and the impact you leave behind. Make it one worth remembering. The journey of becoming your best self. There is no final destination in self-mastery. It is a continuous journey, not a finish line. The pursuit of becoming your best self is not about achieving perfection, but about constant growth, refinement, and learning. Those who truly master life understand that the process itself is the reward. Consider Michelangelo, one of the greatest artists of all time. Even in his final years, after painting the Sistine Chapel and sculpting masterpieces that defined the Renaissance, he referred to himself as still learning. He never saw himself as complete, because true greatness is built on the understanding that growth never stops. Modern psychology echoes this idea. Studies on personal development reveal that people who adopt a growth mindset, the belief that abilities and intelligence can always be improved, tend to achieve more, adapt better, and find greater fulfillment in life. They are not discouraged by failure because they see every challenge as a step forward, not a setback. They are not limited by success because they see it as part of a larger journey, not a final outcome. So how do you embrace the journey of self-mastery? First, focus on progress, not perfection. Every day is an opportunity to refine yourself, to improve by even 1%. Second, remain a student of life. Never assume you have arrived. The moment you stop learning is the moment you stop growing. Third, find joy in the process. If you only chase results, you will never be satisfied. But if you learn to love the pursuit of excellence itself, success will follow naturally. Look at Bruce Lee, who constantly pushed himself beyond limits, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. He believed that self-mastery was not about conquering others, but about conquering oneself. He refined his craft, challenged his beliefs, and remained open to learning in every stage of life. The Stoics taught that the journey of self-improvement is lifelong. Epictetus reminded his students that progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily. The lesson is clear. There is no final version of your best self, only the version you are building today. Embrace the process, commit to continuous growth, and enjoy the lifelong journey of becoming more than you were yesterday. Mastering your life is not about chasing perfection or waiting for the right moment. It is about the quiet, deliberate commitment to becoming a little better each day. It is about understanding that growth is not an event, but a process. That discipline is not a restriction, but a form of freedom. That success is not just what you achieve, but who you become along the way. The great minds of history, from philosophers to inventors, from leaders to artists, all understood one truth. The person you are today is a result of the choices you've made, and the person you will become is shaped by the choices you make from this moment forward. Every action, every habit, every moment of reflection brings you closer to the life you're capable of living. The path to mastery is never easy. There will be resistance, setbacks, doubts, and failures. But those who persist, who embrace discomfort, who choose discipline over ease, who see challenges as opportunities, are the ones who rise above mediocrity and craft a life of true fulfillment. So ask yourself, what kind of life are you building? What choices are you making today that will shape your future? Because in the end, your life is not defined by what you intended to do. It is defined by what you actually do. The journey is yours. Make it one worth remembering.